Oh.
He was in the rear with the gear and all this, but he was in country, and they had a lot of.
rhymes.
Big part?
I said, I love it how everything rhymes
for everything.
So you know, the rear and the gear.
But I never met any personalities like that who would be willing to do something like that. None of us were like that. I mean, we were well trained. We were Marines. We were there to do a job, and we did our job. And the guy who was next to you, you had to trust him implicitly. And did I ever tell you about the McAllister that joined us?
I know you. I heard that there was a black McAllister.
There was a black McAllister, but this guy was white. And he
Oh.
spelled his name with one C, not two C's. The black McAllister spells his name with
So
two
there's
C's.
3 McAllisters in your
That's right.
company.
Right. No, the second, not in my company. The
Oh.
second McAllister that you're talking about, I have come across the
Oh,
entire
okay.
time.
I got it.
In terms of administration
Okay.
and records, in terms of the VA as well. They had mixed up prescriptions that belonged to him versus belonging to me. And
First name?
yeah, it's Thomas McAllister, and the last 4 are the same thing, 5752. Now the rest of the Social Security number
That's
is
crazy.
yeah,
Did you ever
the
meet
rest
him
of
in
Social
person?
Security. Beg pardon?
Did you ever meet this man in
No,
person?
but I saw a
Oh,
picture.
you
He's
should.
black.
Oh. You go out to dinner one night. Like,
There is a fundamental difference between the two.
A little DNA trait.
But the McAllister I'm talking about, the kind of guy that I'm sure you've encountered this, he gung-ho. He couldn't wait to be in a firefight. And at the time, I was squad leader. And I'm telling I'm telling the rest of the
I'm trying to shut it off.
Amory and her
Sorry,
camera. No, it was Amory. She like blinded us, right?
Sorry, I'm trying to shut it off.
He was gung-ho. He couldn't wait to be in a firefight. He was locking up a lot of junk and all this nonsense. And so I told the squad, I told the fire team that I put him in, I told the leader of the fire team to put him in and just keep an eye on him. Well, we run into a warship, okay? And he's standing up on the ridge, just standing there as big as life. And so I took a 60 case of ammo and threw it at him. Knock him down, knock him off the cliff. And, you know, he was a typical reaction in terms of what you would expect after that. I mean, he would bawl like a baby in this kind of thing, slap him upside the head in order to get him back to reality. And he had a minor wound, and he never came back to the platoon. He never came back to the platoon, so I don't know.
A lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Now, how did you feel the first time you saw a dead American?
Angry, scared, wishing to God it never happened to me. There's no bullshitting about it.
Sad? Sad?
Yeah. I never knew the guy's name. He had a second chest wound. I don't know why I'm talking about this.
It's like, Tom, it's like my mother. Your grandkids.
He had a second chest wound, and we didn't know it. And the second chest wound is you take an entry on one side of the body, and it penetrates the lungs, and it doesn't go out the other side of the body. Right? If it does go out the other side of the body, it takes a very large exit hole. And the reason it's called a second chest wound is because you're trying to breathe, and you can't breathe because lungs are collapsed. Right? And we didn't know. He had a wound in his leg, and I'm attending to his leg, and I'm humping him out to the medevac, to the, help me here, the AZ.
LZ.
Thank you, LZ. And
Landing zone. That's where the helicopters fly in to get everybody to bring them out.
yeah. So I'm carrying him out, and he is wheezing and wheezing and wheezing, and I can't figure out what the hell's going on.
Where was the corpsman? Where was the corpsman?
He had been hurt.
Oh.
And so it was the rest of us who were in the platoon who were taking care of everybody else. And we were trying to make cover and still take care of the people who were hurt. And we set up a perimeter on the LZ. And we're waiting for the choppers to come in, and he's still, I can't tell I can't find out what, and finally, I just took my K-bar and cut off his flak jacket and his fatigues. And he had a second chest wound. So we used a,
C-rat,
Do they,
plastic,
do they teach
no,
you how to-
basic.
the poncho.
Oh, poncho to plug it
Yeah,
up. So
right, the poncho. So we cut the poncho up, wrapped it around him, blah, 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 blah. I never knew if he ever survived. And I tried once to find out if he survived. And I only knew his first name.
But
because
did he make it out alive of the picked up by the
he was
Elsa?
alive when he got on
So-
the chopper. Yeah, he was alive when he got on the chopper.
More 9 times out of 10 he made it then.
Read it?
Yeah. It ain't fun. And I'll say this because I'm running off at the mouth now, I'll say this. If I hated anybody, I hated the politicians. Because good men were dying because they couldn't make up their minds. And it was so frustrating, make you feel so abandoned. You know? All we ever had to do.
Even then, you guys, young guys, 20 years old, realized that like you couldn't go. You got artillery from North Vietnam, but you couldn't go into North
We
Vietnam.
couldn't, yeah. We used to,
I mean, you were right on the DMZ, right,
Right.
by the trace.
right, my company used to float from one side of from the,
Alpha 3 to the
right,
water.
right, and we used to float between the two. And anytime, there was just certain parameters we could not pass, and there was no reason not to. And good men were dying because we weren't allowed to. And all they ever had to do was put the third on one side and the first on the other side, and we could have gone through to Hanoi in a week. Because they were not well equipped, they were not prepared. They were simply
Who? The
the NVA. The NVA were not well. They weren't as prepared as we were.
But,
they weren't as
but do you
well
think
trained
they
as
were
we
committed?
Big what?
But do you think they were committed to? Do you think they were idealistic?
I'll tell you another story.
All right.
Another horseshoe, we get caught in. We break through. I've got my fire team spread out. I walk into a clearing. There's an NVA standing on the other side
I
of the
remember you
clearing.
told me about this years ago.
He looks at me, I look at him, and we turn around and go about our own business.
Do you ever feel guilty you didn't take him out?
No,
Do you ever think that maybe he was the one?
he was not pointing anything at me. He was not,
But do you? And I'm not criticizing you because I was never in that situation. But do you think maybe a week later he was setting the ambush for you and your guys, and he pulled the
no more so
claymore?
than a week later I was setting an ambush for his guys. There was no sense of animosity. There was no sense of I'm fighting for my home. There was no sense of I've got to protect my family.
Do you still remember his face?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the few things that I haven't blocked out.
How far away were you?
I'd say about 20 yards. About 20 yards. And it was a small little clearing. You know, there was there was a couple of banana trees, small fruit trees, and all that happy nonsense. It just, he was fighting to protect his home. He
Of
was
course.
fighting to protect his
Sure.
country. But he didn't have any animosity toward me.
Well, I mean, if
We
you
looked at each other, he turned away, I turned away.
right, if you look at it, we were the invaders. The same thing in Iraq. We invaded.
never
we,
understood.
we invaded that country. So, I mean, for me, how could we call them insurgents in Iraq when we were the ones that were
Yeah.
toppling their government?
Yeah, I agree, 110%. We've never had, in my lifetime, we've never had a justifiable reason to go to war. There
Korea.
are,
Korea.
well, in my lifetime.
Well, you were.
Well, it was into Korea,
Yes.
okay? It was into Korea.
You don't think
politicians-
you don't think Afghanistan was the right?
No. I
No?
don't. No, I don't.
I thought
Chasing, go ahead.
I thought that if there was a right war, instead of Iraq, Afghanistan was it, until I went there and saw the corruption.
Yeah. I knew nothing about the corruption, but the idea of being there to find
Osama.
Osama bin Laden.
And it's just got into a cluster. Like we would,
Yeah.
I was more involved with reconstruction efforts, and there's a huge heroin poppy growing area
Okay.
that the U.S. and NATO were originally trying to eradicate it. And then they said, no, we can't eradicate it because that's going to alienate the locals because that's their cash crop. So that heroin that's made goes straight to Europe. So
Which is then fed
and
into
then
the US.
and then the Taliban, they tax it, so they're making money on it. So it's just like an evil circle.
Right. It's like the triangle for the rum to slaves
Yeah.
to honey, wasn't it?
I
Honey?
think it was honey.
Molasses.
Molasses, thank you.
Molasses. I was
So-
gonna say
so-
sugarcane. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Ma, let's talk about a nice thing. Let's talk about Jimmy again.
What?
Let's talk about Jimmy.
Jim
Jimmy.
McAllister.
You know more about him.
What do you mean? You were his nephew. You've known him much longer than I did.
I wasn't with him all the time.
I know, Ma, but you know Jimmy when he was a little kid. What was he like?
A good kid.
Yeah,
Kind.
yeah.
Had a big heart.
Helpful. He was a good kid.
Was he a good bartender?
Yes.
I never heard
That
him
was an
curse.
acquired skill. It was not something he was born
Well,
with.
just
Out of interest.
I'm just saying that because I want it on film about Jimmy's New Year's Eve bartending at my mom's house.
I know.
Now, what happened? Hank and Annie were at the house, right? And Jimmy was bartending for New Year's Eve, right?
I guess so.
What do you mean you guess so?
Then I don't remember everything.
Well, Ma, come on. Anne Marie and Michelle want to hear about, Jimmy getting drunk and throwing up.
Yeah, like what did he do? Would he,
Good old
like,
times.
would he take like the half-empty ones and drink it, and then let me
I bet that's what he did. And what did he do? He threw up all over the new carpet?
You and him.
No, not me and him. I was like 3 years old.
So my dad threw up all over your new carpet.
Bernie and Jimmy.
Not Ma. Bernie was only like about 8 years old.
They were drinking.
Bernie was? Or Jimmy?
8-year-old?
And Jimmy threw up, and what happened?
Well, it was cleaned up and I never got the spot out.
Okay. And Jimmy, when he was passing out, he said, "I am dead." I do remember that because I was in bed, and my brother was in bed. We had beds next to each other, and Jimmy was really loaded, and he was throwing up all over the place. And I remember my brother and myself were cracking up laughing. And I remember the last thing that I hear was Jimmy saying, "I'm dead." Right, Ma? Remember that?
Partially.
Yeah, okay.
I don't remember everything you do.
I was barely a kid. So Vinny wants to hear about Uncle Johnny drinking in Grandma's basement. Vinny wants to hear about Uncle Johnny being banished to Grandma's basement and eating bananas and drinking wine.
Oh, they had a good time.
Yeah? And why was Grandma always used to throw the shoe at Uncle Johnny?
What?
Why was Grandma throwing the shoe at Uncle Johnny?
Because he was naughty.
Okay. And what about when Uncle Johnny, he would take his bike and ride all over Staten Island when he was a little kid?
Well, he wasn't supposed to. He found a bike at the dumps. And he fixed it up. And he rode to South Beach one night.
From West Brighton.
And he stayed out all night.
How old was
How
he?
old was he?
And Grandma...
Ma, how old was he?
How old?
He was about 12.
12 years old?
And he got such a beating from Grandma.
That's right.
She had a metal spoon and was beating him up with it. The next week he did it again.
What?
Did he get
So
caught
what did
again?
she do now? Yeah. Did he get caught?
Sure he did. Grandma hit him
With what?
with a spoon.
Again?
And I don't know what happened after that.
That she.
Yeah, Grandma was a really good shot with the
I
shoe.
heard she was good with that shoe.
That story.
Now, why was Uncle Johnny the favorite?
He had a beautiful disposition.
Yeah.
Was he the baby?
He was defiant, he was self-destructive, but he had a beautiful disposition. He was very loving, very lovable, attentive. He was beautiful. He had a very good heart, And I never heard anything bad about him when I went out.
Was Uncle Johnny a tough guy?
My brothers were not tough guys, but they knew how to defend themselves.
Did you ever see Uncle Johnny or Uncle Patty or Uncle Tony get into a fight?
No,
Not even with each other?
they were not allowed to hit each other.
I know, but you're not allowed, but you do it anyway. So, like, was there anything, like, out in the backyard wrestling or nothing?
Well, Johnny was younger than Patty and Tony.
Uh-huh.
He had his own friends.
Okay.
But you never saw Uncle Johnny or Uncle Patty get into a fight? Tell us about when Grandpa beat up the guy who was peeing in the backyard.
I told him.
Well, we want to hear it.
Anna and me were making mud pies. We were playing in the backyard. And some black guy came in. I didn't see him, neither did Anna. But the guy came in the backyard and he started to pee in the backyard. Grandpa was upstairs. He came downstairs and hit the guy, and the guy was knocked out
With his fist? With his fist? Or you hit him with a bat or something?
with his fist.
Okay.
And Grandpa called Uncle Patty. He's put him in the wheelbarrow and thrown him on Wayne Street. And that's what he did.
So you didn't call the cops, you just moved him yourself?
Took a win?
Where was he dumped? Where did they put him?
On the street in a wheelbarrow.
Okay. Your grandparents the first generation, or what?
Yeah, my grandma and grandpa, they were born in Italy.
They were born in Italy.
Yeah.
And their
My
parents
father-
came over.
No,
Never hit
they
us.
They came over themselves.
grandma and your great grandparents were born in Italy, came to the United States.